So I think I should go ahead and get started.
Break a leg.
All right. Well, here this morning, it's great to have you with us on the healthcare side of the house and the Veeam Microsoft Alliance Partnership. So my name is Paul Strelzik. I'm General Manager and Senior Vice President of Veeam Americas Sales. And again, really just happy to have you with us here today. So we have a fairly straightforward agenda. We have the opening, as you're in the middle of. As you can see, I have a white wall behind me, but now it's a blurry white wall, so pretty nondescript. We have a panel discussion that we're very excited about, a customer interview with South Georgia Medical Center. We'll do a Q&A session, and then we'll talk about some of the offerings that Veeam, in partnership with Microsoft Solutions, has to offer. So hope you enjoy the program. First, this is just a representative sample, or on the sales side, we call this, building street credibility, but a little bit of a representative sample. Healthcare vertical has always been very strong at Veeam, both because of the simplicity of the solutions, the power of the solutions. They really play well in this vertical. And I'll let the experts talk more about how it ties in and some of the trends we're seeing in the market. But wanted you to see this is not new to Veeam. It's not new to Microsoft. And we really look forward to talking about the things we can bring to the table. So, overall, it's interesting. I've been doing this for a while. Healthcare had a reputation for a long time as having a lot of legacy applications. A lot of times they were just more set in place. But the reality is, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a very big trend in the healthcare vertical moving to the forefront of advanced technologies, moving more towards modern workloads, a lot of cloud deployments. We've seen a big shift and it's moving into this hybrid environment. We've also seen healthcare applications be much more complicated. There's just a lot more involved in the data, in the presentation of the data. And thirdly, I think there would absolutely be a strong argument made that healthcare applications are the most critical applications because they don't just involve dollars, right? They involve patient care. They involve life or death decisions. They involve much more than just a P&L. So the availability of the data, good data, the reliability of the data is just so critically important. So here you see a survey, on data protection trends that was done. This is specific to the healthcare respondents. And there is this availability gap as we've moved to new technologies and new platforms and been cloud first in newer development. We're seeing a 96% gap where they either strongly agree or agree that there's a gap between how fast they can recover applications. That's huge. There's a 93% gap in protection. So how frequently is data backed up versus how much data we can afford to lose? Those are staggering numbers. And it really keeps leading us to this position of making sure that data is provided, backed up, and then it's provided back safely, reliably, securely, so that these life-saving decisions can be made and patient care can be made correctly. So let me turn it over to our panel, Jason, Karen, and Bill, to get into a lot more detail about the Veeam and Microsoft story and the trends they're seeing in the industry.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, my name is Jason Buffington. I am Vice President of Market Strategy in the Office of CTO at Veeam. Super excited to be part of today's conversation, and especially because we have two real experts that come with an authentic healthcare-centric lens into the conversation for today. So to start off with, why we do this? For each of the panelists, I would ask that you share a little bit about yourself, your background, and then those first observations. So Karen, talk to us about first you, and then what are you seeing about healthcare organizations and IT healthcare today? Think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Good to go.
All right, wouldn't be tech without some challenges. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you and the rest of the Veeam team today. So I'm Karen Cox. I'm based in Austin, Texas, and I've been working in healthcare for 25 years now. I started in public health, working in health and utilization management, specifically in Medicaid and children's health insurance. From there, I worked for IT tech consulting in health and public service. I did that for 15 years at Accenture. And most recently, I joined Microsoft about a year and a half ago. And my role here is as Director of Partner Business Strategy in our global healthcare team. So I work with partners, both systems integrators and ISVs, or software vendors, working and focusing on their partner strategy in other regions of our practice. So not only Americas, but EMEA and Asia as well, and hoping to grow their influence in either IP offerings or their services offerings in those other markets. And in terms of trends I'm seeing, just kind of coming off the last couple of years, I think the first thing that really sticks out to me is just the continuation of caregiver and workplace burnout. Not only are we seeing that in healthcare, we're seeing it in other areas of the industry as well, like service industry. But for our nurses, our physicians, our back office staff, whether that's processing claims or being in a contact center, that continues to be an area of challenge for payers and providers, making sure that they can staff, that their staff don't have repetitive tasks, that their patients and consumers are continuing to see good quality of care given limited resources. So I think that's kind of the first thing that stands out.
Very good. Bill Burns, same question. First, you and your background, and then perhaps pile on with what are you seeing from healthcare IT teams? What's working today as we're wrapping up 2022?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me today. Really excited to be with this team. As Jason said, my name is Bill Burns. I lead the global health and life sciences practice here at Veeam. Like Karen, I have a 30-year background in healthcare and life sciences organizations. So started as a software engineer in the very early days of electronic medical record development, and then moved on to the provider side at the Mayo Clinic, where spent some time there, and then really into some leadership and management positions in some publicly traded companies, and then some North American and global leadership roles. Have spent some time with the Department of Health and Human Services, which gave me a completely different perspective on how health is not just delivered, but incented and managed across the United States. So that was a uniquely different perspective there. And what do I think is working? First of all, look, I think there's just a global realization that we've had a decade's worth of advancement in health IT in the last 24 months, right? The pandemic has really forced that. As we come out of it, a lot of those advancements are here to stay. Telehealth, remote health, not just being able to schedule your stuff online, but being able to interact with your care delivery teams in a virtual setting just provides a greater level of care and access to everybody through technology. So a lot of those advancements are here to stay. I think the other thing I've seen of late that's really working is a lot of planned outages or fire drills. And what I mean by that is that we've always sort of tried to protect, and tried is the operative word. We've all tried to protect and back up our systems in the event of a disaster, but rarely had anyone done a fire drill or a test to see how well we recover in those environments. So the thing that I see, not just in North America, but globally, is a lot of systems, a lot of administrators saying, you know what, we can't take for granted that we can recover anymore, and we have to practice it, just like we would practice any other part of our business. We have to do some planned outages, maybe some surprise outages, see what we learn as an organization, take those learnings and do it better the next time. So that's just some of the things we're seeing, Jason.
I like that. I like that. Now, speaking of things that we're seeing, so part of my role is to actually run a lot of the unbiased industry research that we do at Veeam in order to understand where is the market going. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a slide. This is actually from our data protection trends research. And in this case, we had, I think, 3,400 organizations, of which over 300 of them were healthcare specific. Now, Bill, you mentioned the acceleration that had happened. Karen, Satya Nadella, when COVID first hit, said the same thing in those first months after COVID, when you couldn't get in the data center, right? Any IT modernization initiative that started with go rack new gear was a non-starter. And so what we look at here is the percentage of server or of infrastructure that is physical servers in the data center on the left, 5-year run, virtual machines in the middle, which is what Veeam, of course, is most known for, and then cloud hosted workloads on that right-hand side. And you can see that in 2020 to 2021, there is this steep drop that happened, right? So that is the immediate effect of pre and post COVID, where organizations hyper accelerated their use of cloud, right? And then from there, everything kind of normalizes out. So physical stays relatively flat, virtual stays relatively flat, and all the gain, as where a strategy has been going for the last 4 years, is really cloudy on that right-hand side. So Karen, as our Microsoft ambassador for today, between Azure and M365 and everything else that Microsoft offers in that cloudy space, why is it that that healthcare is so cloudy?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with healthcare being, a regulated industry. So providers, payers need flexibility. They need the ability to sometimes have a hybrid cloud. Maybe they're not ready to be fully 100% on cloud. So maybe they need a hybrid on-prem, partial on cloud structure. And I think what's great about Microsoft is that we offer that cloud flexibility with Azure. And then when you couple that with Veeam and their offerings with backup and recovery, it then gives healthcare organizations not only that safety and protection and security, but it also gives them the flexibility that they need, the privacy that they need. Bill spoke earlier about the rise in risk in terms of access to data and protecting that data. And I think we've become more cloudy because the market over the last couple of years has pushed us that way. There are more devices, more than ever, being connected to the cloud. Patients and consumers expect that ready access to that data, and the data needs to be protected. So just as Bill said, this is an exciting time to be in healthcare. We've not seen this type and level of innovation come so quickly in the last couple of years. And I think the coupling of Azure and the offering of either a hybrid cloud environment or a full cloud environment, and then you take a solution like Veeam that allows the safety and security to protect either environment structure, makes it an exciting opportunity for health.
Well said. William, want to pile on for that?
Yeah, again, really cloudy and really hard to do. I guess a couple of things, right? We talked about that availability gap, right? The amount of time that your care delivery systems can be down is the smallest of any industry whatsoever. And historically, healthcare has been last in on the cloud for the most part, right? And a lot of that has been due to that availability gap, but also the fragmentation, the thousands of systems that are involved in a care delivery paradigm. It's far more fragmented than any other industry. And so that presents a giant challenge for these teams of professionals that have to deliver these applications. And so everyone was slowly moving to the cloud, but a couple of things have really transformed that, right? Pandemic for sure, because people needed to stand up systems immediately, right? Back in that February to June timeframe, virtual care, you couldn't go anywhere. People had to stand up systems immediately, and they needed to sort of bifurcate them from their existing infrastructure because they didn't know how those systems were going to react. So safest place to do that, stand them up in the cloud. You can add a level of security around it. You can understand how it reacts. You can give your team some experiences, et cetera. And then a lot of the application vendors themselves, the ISVs, have really adopted cloud-first strategies. And basically, they've told their customers, hey, this workload is in the cloud. The only question is it in yours? So who's going to manage it for you? But it will be cloud SaaS delivered through your data centers or through ours. And so there's been a bit of a push-pull there. And then lastly, as IT teams really struggle with this, what workloads belong in the cloud, what workloads belong in my data center, which one belongs in a remote data center that I own, and they don't have a steering wheel always to make those choices. And so there's a few reasons why this is such a cloudy time, and this is not an easy time to be navigating the progress of technology.
Love that. Love that. So let me keep us going on that topic. You know, we've talked a lot about modernizing production as it relates to, and for most folks, the destination for that is very obviously a cloud, either pure or hybrid state. As another piece of research, by the way, if for anyone who's on the call for today, if you want to download the complete research report, you can click that QR code in the upper right-hand corner to get to the data protection trends report. So one of the other questions that was asked in that research was around the idea of what does modern data protection really mean? And so there's a lot of different options on here. The long lines are choose all that apply. The short lines is choose just the one that matters most. So I'm going to draw out the fact that for most organizations, modern data protection means cloudy. And there's lots of different ways that cloud and data protection start to intersect. Bill, I like some of the things that you said because it actually lines up with what 399 healthcare organizations also thought about what modern data protection means. We're leveraging, making sure you have a consistent approach to protecting on-prem data center workloads as well as IaaS and SaaS, or I'm going to say Azure and 365 as examples. The ability to actually leverage cloud-hosted infrastructure for disaster recovery, doing those drills that we talked about earlier. In this case, say Azure hosting, Azure DR site in lieu of a secondary physical infrastructure. The ability to move from one workload to another. It's not uncommon for devs to first start with what they know. And yet we know many organizations, especially when you have long-standing relationships with Microsoft, the ACR credits, you're going to want that production over within the Azure cloud instead. And then certainly the ability to actually move legacy workloads from on-prem into cloud. So there's lots of different ways that data protection should also be cloudy as we're wrapping up 2022 and into 2023. But of course, cloud is one of just two major topics that we have to address in 2022 and 23. The first one being the cloudiness of data protection, and the other one, unfortunately, being ransomware. Right. So some of the other ways that organizations have talked about what modern data protection means, you can see here that modern data protection has to lean into your disaster recovery strategy with orchestration and workflows. And oh, by the way, your data protection strategy has to integrate as part of a broader cyber strategy. My friend Chris Hoff is going to be talking with that with our customer in just a little bit. But let's go ahead and dig in on this one. William, from a data protection side, what should folks be thinking about on these kinds of protection topics?
Yeah, look, this is, just as we thought we were getting the transition to cloud sort of underway, ransomware security come in here, right? And I think there's two things that are playing here is that, healthcare globally is the number one the number one cybercrime target of all industries, right? It's a soft target. It's easy to get to. It's fragmented, et cetera. So, look, I'm fortunate enough to be able to talk to Veeam customers across the globe. And I got to tell you, in the last 20 months, I don't know that I've spoken to a single customer that hasn't been in the middle of some sort of cybercrime recovery, whether it be full ransomware or just cyber criminal type activities, or are recovering from that, right? It's so prevalent, and I can't overstate it enough. But the types of things people should really be looking at, and this is what makes this cloud migration topic so tricky, is the whole concept of hardened repositories, like with Azure being able to put information into a secure Azure blob, being able to air gap that instance or away from your traditional infrastructure, whether it be cloud or not. So the ability to provide that additional layer of secure infrastructure is not trivial, because in the event of a criminal or compromised set of activities, what we're finding is most of those activities happened months and weeks ago, and the very cloud infrastructures sometimes that we're relying on will contain compromised data, right? So the ability for those infrastructures to be flexible enough to be able to address things like air gapping, hardened repositories, things like that is important.
Makes sense. Man, time is really going by quick. But Karen, first and foremost, I want to thank you for being part of the talk for today. And you shared a little bit of this already, but talk about what you think of from the Veeam Microsoft partnership and how it's addressing some of this as well.
Yeah, the Veeam and Microsoft partnership goes back 30 plus years. It's a great relationship and partnership for us as a Microsoft team. And I think what Veeam brings to the relationship is the opportunity to connect our customers, our clients to the cloud. They support both hybrid and full cloud models, but they also have one of the best backup and recovery solutions in market that pairs and couples really well with Azure. So I think customers, we see a high customer retention rate when we deploy and couple Azure with Veeam and their offerings. And I think that speaks to the security, the trust that's there. We see high customer satisfaction rates as well with the offerings when coupled together. And I think that speaks well to a continued relationship, especially as we continue to evolve our Microsoft Cloud for Health, Industry Cloud, and other clouds. I think the ability for Veeam to adapt and to, as Bill spoke of, prepare customers to handle those cybersecurity attacks. They're becoming more frequent. They're becoming more expensive and costly to healthcare organizations. And I think the Veeam partnership speaks really well to how delivering together on the cloud, it speaks well or bodes well for our customers to reduce those risks.
Really well said. For the record, I'm also a former Microsoftie. And so way back in the day, I used to run some of our built-in backup products. And it's the same thing, right? So that power of the ecosystem and making sure that the backup technologies are ahead of where customers are. So as customers adopt these leading edge technologies like Azure hosting, like Azure File and Azure SQL and M365 and everything else of where they need to go for their business, that data protection is still part of that foundation, so that as you modernize production, you also get to modernize protection at that same rate, ensuring that data stays sovereign and secure regardless of where it is in a hybrid platform. So I want to keep going with this idea, though. So you've got several hundred folks on the call for today. They're all focused on healthcare, including those that are going to be on demand afterwards. Karen, I'm going to stay with you for just a second. And What is it that you need them to hear when we think about leaning into 2023 and where healthcare has to go, production and protection? What do you want to make sure that they get out of today's session?
Well, I think, one, you have to think about your consumers and your patients. What we're noticing coming off the pandemic is patients and consumers want quick, fast demand. They want more unified access to services and tech. Bill spoke about virtual health, but it's also med tech as well. Think about a connected toothbrush. So think about your wellness device. All of that is connected. All of that drives data consumption. The access to that data needs to be prompt and quick. And so what I would leave our viewers with today is, if you haven't thought about, as Bill mentioned, the disaster recovery plan, making sure that cybersecurity, ransom protection is part of that plan. We're coming up on a new calendar year. Go back, revisit that plan,
Yep.
see if that is part of your plan. And then secondly, if you haven't done an assessment, a recent assessment, to think about all the different avenues your data is connected to your systems, to your network, take the time to do an assessment. It may cost you a little more upfront to get that done, but it will save you much later in terms of risk, in terms of your credibility in the market, in terms of your shareholders. So think about it that way. If you haven't done it yet, I think now is the best time, now that we're coming up on the new calendar year, to do that. So that's what I'd leave folks with is take a look at your practices, take a look at your plan, make sure it includes ransomware security, and then think about how you can assess that risk and pull in partners like Microsoft, like Veeam, to assess that risk for you.
Man, Karen, that is music to my ears, and especially as we are going into these winter months, the analogy being it is better to check your pipes than to have to replace them. So, especially as we come in towards that cold weather. Bill Burns, same question. You've got a captured audience here of healthcare folks. We're coming into New Year in 2023. What is it that you want to make sure that folks hear as healthcare organizations continue to innovate moving forward?
Yeah, I was with a customer in Nevada about 3 months ago, and sort of asked them what we can do to help, and it kind of shot right back at me. He says, "Hey, Bill, I need options and cash." Right. And I said, "Well, I'm a little light on cash, but I think I can help you with the options." Right. And he was very serious. He was like, "Look, if I have optionality, I can create cash in my own organization by making smart decisions." And so I think that the thing that most people need to think about is, are the decisions I'm making creating optionality for my organization? Am I making a decision that's going to lock me in for the next 3 years, for the next 2 years, for the next year? And I think that the traditional march of IT of, hey, we're using X vendor or this vendor, for the next 3 years, those days are over and gone, right? And so organizations are really looking towards what solutions give them the optionality. And that's where we're so fortunate to be deeply partnered with Microsoft. Microsoft's experiences in the cloud extend far beyond healthcare. They're involved in some of the most secure and deepest and business operating paradigms on this planet. And we actually get to learn a lot around how Azure has been deployed in other industries, how Azure has been deployed in hyper secure environments, and we're able to bring those best practices to the architectures that we at Veeam develop with Microsoft. And for example, our ability to be able to secure Epic workloads into secure Azure blobs, and being able to provide for the active recovery of that. These are learnings that without a deep partner like Microsoft, would have taken us a lot longer to get to. So I would leave everybody with, the one thing as you move forward is the decision I'm making today, does it provide optionality for my organization? And if that answer is yes, it's most likely a good decision.
I like that. I'm going to also offer a closing word and actually a closing slide while we're at it. So one of the other data points that came out of the same research, again, QR code in the upper right-hand corner, was looking at the different kinds of outages that happen within the environments, as well as in the short lines, what was the most impactful outage in 2020, the most impactful outage in 2021, and in a couple months, we'll publish the 2022 results for that as well. But I just want to draw your eye to, as much as we talk about things like modernizing for cloud and we talk about ransomware, certainly the key event to prepare for, those are not the only things that still are risks to so many organizations today. Infrastructure still breaks, right? Applications still corrupt. Data still imports badly. There's still a lot of other things that data protection still has to solve for above and beyond when you are physical, virtual, or multi-hybrid cloud hosted along that way. Now, that said, when we look at the most impactful outages for the last 2 years running, it's humans, right? And I'm going to summarize this as bad humans and silly humans, right? Silly humans is users still overwrite stuff. They still overwrite last year's budget with this year and then wonder why they don't have last year's file. But that being said, most impactful outage last 2 years certainly is cyber. And I would just leave you with the fact that while cyber has to be part of the strategy, just know that there's a lot of other stuff that backup and long-term retention in previous versions still applies for. But since cyber is the top of the stack, it's important to double click into that one more time. And to do that, our good friend Chris Hoff is going to take over at this point. And Chris, you brought along a friend, and looking forward to what both of you are going to share.
Thanks, Jason. It's great to be here. So by way of introduction, I'm Chris Hoff. I'm product marketing manager here at Veeam. I cover ransomware and data security. This is year 30 almost for my IT experience. Half of that has been dedicated to security, and Veeam is actually one of the up and coming security players because disaster recovery is now becoming part of the security stack, and we're calling it cyber resilience. Today, I'm going to be talking to Matt Ellsbury of South Georgia Medical Center. We're going to chat about what they're doing to protect patients and enable recovery from ransomware. Now, a little background: South Georgia Medical Center is committed to customer-centered, competent, compassionate, and cost-effective care. Each year, they see about 400,000 people visiting their organization's 4 hospitals, their 5 primary care practices, and 22 specialty offices. Patients choose SGMC because of their top-notch healthcare providers who are using the latest technology to provide that quality care. And as part of that, people are putting their trust in SGMC to keep their data safe and secure. Now, we heard in our panel discussion that healthcare is the largest target for cyber criminals these days. And to wrap some statistics around that, cyber criminals in 2020 attacked healthcare providers about 65% of the time, as opposed to 54% of the time in other industries. Now, here's the scary part. From the ransomware trends report that Jason was referring to, out of everybody in 2022 who was hit with ransomware, only 19% of those organizations were able to recover without paying the ransom. And out of the other portion of folks who did actually pay the ransom, about half of those people paid the ransom and still didn't get their data back. And so it's obviously a challenge. Now, today we're going to talk with Matt Ellsbury, who's a systems administrator at SGMC. He's going to share his journey on how they took are taking, I should say, a more proactive approach for ransomware protection by improving their defenses and building a more resilient data center and disaster recovery plan. And so, Matt, I want to welcome you, and I couldn't do your career justice, so why don't you just take a moment and introduce yourself?
Hey, thank you so much. As you can see, very white beard. So I've been in IT for, I'd say about 21 years now. But I've only been in the medical portion of that for 5 years. And when I took that job, I was expecting to see a lot of latent great technology. And surprisingly, I was introduced to a lot of old, antiquated stuff that we still rely on. So, but yeah, getting to where did you want me to discuss why we started looking for Veeam? Or
Yeah, that's probably a great place to start. So what did drive you guys to start the process?
so yeah, our legacy solution that we were using, uh, we ran into an issue where it was first of all not being administrated correctly, which led us to to look at what the issues were uh, that we were having. Um, when we started looking at it, we realized that we didn't have encrypted backups, and we didn't have any kind of hardened repositories, and there were a lot of features in things that we were looking to have that just weren't available. So we decided instead of trying to fix what we had, just to look around and see what was available, and start from the ground up. And that's when we came across Veeam, and 3 years now going. It was a great decision, and I love it, absolutely love it. That's why I agreed to do this.
And that type of sentiment is why I chose to join Veeam as well. I mean, it's rare, particularly in security world, to hear somebody say that they love a product. Most of us, quite honestly, tolerate the products that we use to protect ourselves. But what was it that caused you to choose us?
Um, so, oh man, there were so many things. Um, First of all, the sales team was great. I've met sales engineers before that talk a good game but don't understand the product. But your sales engineers and your sales team was top notch. So what really brought me to it? I guess the deciding factor was the scale out backup repository that Veeam offers. So, in not getting into too technical, but being able to add multiple repositories and combine them together into one target as a scale out backup repository. So we have local storage, and we also use Azure Blob Storage. So that allows us to, for our backups to quickly get on the local storage, and then it's immediately replicated out to Azure. And we're also utilizing the hardened repositories as well. But yeah, the scale out backup repository was in my opinion the biggest reason that we went with Veeam.
And that's important too, because as we're seeing more and more attackers going after the backup repositories themselves, being able to encrypt the data, being able to make sure that you've got that immutable storage, and being able to have multiple copies of that data is becoming more and more important. You've probably heard it yourself, and you may be one of the people who said it to me that having multiple copies both on premises and in the cloud is what can save you. One thing that you mentioned during a couple of our calls was that you're using Veeam for litigation hold. And you explained it to me, and not being a healthcare person, not being a lawyer, I kind of got it. But can you talk about what you're doing with Veeam to deal with your litigation hold issues, and why that's important?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're using Veeam for our litigation holds with our Office 365. So um, with the litigation holds, there's of course cost involved in the 365 platform. So before we implemented this, when we tied a license to a user, if you wanted that data retained, that license needed to stay with that user, even if the user was no longer working with you anymore. And what we did with Veeam is basically we just our retention policy is our whole our entire litigation time span, whatever the administration decides is how long we're supposed to keep the data. So we no longer have to tie a license to that user and bear the expense of that in the case that we may or may not have to recover it. So whether or not you have a license tied to it in 365, Veeam has always got that data, and all we have to do is restore it and apply a license to it, and we're able to recover it, which makes it a lot easier for us. It saves a little bit of money, and it's a lot easier to manage. And I think we're going to touch on this a little bit of us using Veeam to migrate our data from one platform to another. I didn't know if you wanted to segue into that, or if you had any more questions. But
yeah, let's actually talk about that, because that's kind of an interesting use case, and we're talking a lot about security, so kind of nice to talk about something that's not so doom and gloom.
Okay. And also, I apologize. I'm I'm recovering from COVID this week, so my head is just a little bit foggy. But so what we've done, we had an older VMware solution for our virtual environment. So we wanted to first of all save some money, and it needed to be upgraded because it was out of date. So we decided to go to Hyper-V, which saved us a ton of money on licensing. But instead of having to attach the storage and try to go through some third party, I guess Veeam would be a third party anyway. But anyway, we used Veeam backups to do a restore into Hyper-V from VMware, and it worked seamlessly. So we were able to migrate all of our VMware stuff to our Hyper-V platform. That was about 2 years ago. So we did it again recently this year. We again updated from Hyper-V. We went to the Azure HCI stack, which is the hybrid cloud infrastructure. So again, it was successful before, so why not do it again? So we used Veeam. Basically, we told Veeam that our HCI stack was our offsite data center, and we created replication copy jobs to it. And then whenever, as the system administrators were ready for their system to be migrated, it was basically just a click of a button. And honestly, 2 minutes, the systems were, and we did multiple servers at a time. So we just did it by application. So some applications had 10 servers, some applications only had 1 server, but it was only about maybe 2 minutes, and we got all that stuff migrated over. And not only did it help us do that, but it also served as a real world test for our recovery process. If we needed to recover to Azure, or if we needed to fail over, I'm confident that we can do it because I've done it. I did it on every one of our servers. It was great.
That's actually a great point, and one of the things that's interesting, and I was talking with some of our SEs about this earlier this week, is the fact that we have the ability to give you so many options for recovery, whether it is a failover, whether it's storage snapshots or recovering from your backup repos, seems to clean, or I don't want to make it sound too easy. Recovery, especially from ransomware, can get pretty messy pretty quickly. But it seems like those options are what is making life easier for you guys. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it would. And I know the focus is on cybersecurity and recovering from a disaster. Uh, but honestly, the backup system, it it plays more of a day-to-day role with the smaller things that I believe y'all touched on earlier. Um, One of the features that we get with Veeam is the user recovery console, the self help me with it,
The self-help features?
the self-help features. So we don't give that to our end users yet. I don't think we trust our end users enough with that, but we do give it to the help desk. So when an end user calls and says, "Listen, I've accidentally deleted uh, this file, or I made some change to it and I can't recover it," the help desk can find that very, very quickly in that web portal, and it's just a one-click recovery. So they don't even have to put a ticket in to me as the backup administrator to recover a Word document, and that happens daily. And the end users are very pleased with it because they get usually the recovery happens while they're on the phone, so they don't have to wait. The IT department gets a gold star. So I mean, it's not just, I mean, cybersecurity and recovering from disasters. I mean, that's job one, but I mean, it also plays a role in day-to-day operations in IT.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're really talking in your case about patient care, right? And quality of care.
That's
So
correct.
it, the timing for some of that information, I'm sure, is critical just by itself. So there's a couple questions, and by the way, for everybody listening in, if you have questions for Matt, you can enter them in. We'll take a few minutes, but there are a couple questions here that I wanted to address. And the first one is somebody was asking what research data. I'm going to paraphrase it. What research did you use to share with your management team about Veeam that helped you make the decision to choose us in the first place?
Okay, so yeah, that's a very good question. Of course, Veeam was not the only one that we looked at. We looked at many other vendors. So the research data that we looked at was supplied to us by the sales team, and a lot of it was the success stories and the white papers that had been published on other healthcare organizations that had used Veeam, and also our CIO had recently went to one of the conferences. I don't know if it was HIMSS or something like that, and they were able to talk with other C-suite members or higher members of the IT teams for these other healthcare organizations, and he actually came back with with um, with data that I was not able to collect. So it was he did his thing and I did my thing. So that's basically where all the data came from.
Got it. Yeah. So you proved that technically it would work for you, whereas your CISO made sure that from the business perspective it made sense.
That's
That's fair.
correct.
There's another question in here that is asking, were there any deployment delays or challenges in implementing your ransomware recovery solution with Veeam and Microsoft? And really what they're asking is, how well do we support you? That's really what they're asking.
Okay, so that yeah, y'all get a gold star for that one as well, because I was not a backup guy. Um, So backup was new to me, and it just got thrown on my table. So, and I told the sales engineer, I said, listen, now I don't know everything about backup. And the team that we used, we used professional services with our vendor, and they actually came in and they did almost everything with me. I sat there while they set everything up and explained it to me. So I basically got training while they set it up. And as far as hurdles, the POC that we did, we had some spare servers in our data center, and we decided just to use those. It was, it was extremely simple to set up. So when we were ready to go live with it, we basically already had it set up from our POC. Um, it was seamless. I've had to open maybe a handful of support cases over the past 3 years. For honestly, it was configuration errors that I had made, and the support team is great. If you have a high priority call, I put in a high priority ticket, and within 20 minutes, my desk phone was ringing, and it was somebody from Veeam wanting to remote in to fix the issue. So, yeah, as far as deployment and support, I know I went off on a tangent on support, but anyway, all of that was great. It was great.
I'm sure that Paul's listening in and is happy to hear that both the sales team and the support team is helping you out. So that's awesome. The support guys are some of the first people that I talked to when I joined Veeam to find out what's really going on, and I can absolutely echo your sentiment of how great they are. They definitely have our customers' backs. So it doesn't look like we only had those 2 questions come in. So what I'll do right now, I just want to thank you, Matt, for taking the time to speak to us today, and I really appreciate your partnership. It's always fun to talk to you. Get better. I know COVID is not a fun couple weeks, but at this point, I'll hand it back to Paul to take us home.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. And Matt, yeah, thanks for showing up and being a part of this. Coming off of COVID, I mean, it's just it really makes a big impact on your day. I had COVID a couple of months ago, and I mean, man, just sitting in the chair seemed painful sometimes. And I don't have the slide deck. I know we have a couple of slides we were going to put up just to close it out, but I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully you got a lot of benefit out of it. I want to thank Jason and Karen and Bill Burns for the panel discussion. Again, I want to thank Chris and Matt from South Georgia Medical Center for his insight as far as Veeam, the Microsoft relationship, and just the state of the industry. And again, if I can ask someone, maybe they could put up those slides just to close it out. I know Matt referenced the case studies and the white papers. And okay, well, let me start with this one. So here's the Microsoft Veeam solutions, Veeam Microsoft solutions we've got. I won't read the whole list. We welcome you to come to our website, to contact sales, send us an email, whatever it might be. Really, Matt, thanks for the glowing recommendation about our sales engineers. I do believe they're the best in the industry, but it's great to have third-party validation. So we'd love to take you through any of these, either a trial, a demo, a general discussion, needs analysis, whatever it might be. We would love to work with you on that. Here's a special offer we have. So again, we'll get this all out to you, but you can download this today for Microsoft 365. Again, a big driver of cloud data these days. So we welcome you to take advantage of this special offer. really, here's where I wanted to get to. Matt mentioned this, these white papers, the solution briefs, customer stories. Again, please take a chance, look at these, read through them. The partnership of Microsoft with Veeam really allows us to bring, this hybrid environment to cloud resources. And again, there's a lot of great information out there. So if you took something away from this presentation, or if you take something away from these, just contact us. We welcome the chance to work with you. And I think we were going to say we've got an upcoming data protection as well. But really, it's look for our upcoming more of these type of briefings and customer success stories. And thank you for your participation. And I hope when you're looking at your environment, as I think Karen did a tremendous job talking about the house cleaning and the work to be done going into the new year. Just think Microsoft, Veeam, it's a great solution that really welcomes an opportunity to work with you and help provide you secure and reliable access to data. So with that, I'll close it out, and I'll thank you very much for your participation and joining us today. Thank you.